Good morning to all of you today. And if you are catching us for the first time, this is just to let you know that we are teaching or proclaiming little short messages of the gospel of Jesus Christ and how He died for our sins, was buried, and rose again for our justification. So even while we are in the midst of a little series, sometimes it's good to just to break away from that a little bit in order to just to remind ourselves of what this wonderful gospel is all about. And let's just have just a short recap of this whole gospel idea. And the word gospel simply means good news, no complication. And when we think about it, good news really only makes sense in the light of bad news. So many times we are in a situation where people come to us, or we tell people, do you want the good news first or the bad news? So I think if I'm not mistaken, 8 out of 10 times we usually say, no, let's have the good news first, and or the bad news first, so that the good news can probably make you feel better. Come on, boy. Come on. So, and that's what the gospel is. And the bad news is the Bible clearly tells us that how every single one of us, without exception, have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And we're going through some nice jungle area over here, pretty thick jungle. And this horse, our wonderful gospel horse, he loves these little adventures. He's always willing to come into territories and explore territories which he has not seen or been before. So, okay, so coming back, that's the bad news. And the reason that we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God is that God is not pointing a finger at us by making a statement. That's not a statement of condemnation, but rather it's a statement pointing out our spiritual condition. And why do I say that? Because we have all been born with that sin nature, and that goes all the way back to the time when Adam fell and sinned in the Garden of Eden, and as a result, sin passed on to every man right till this very day. And as a result of sin, death, sickness, all these things have become part and parcel of the human race. And now, so that's the bad news. And basically our eternal destination, because of the sin nature that has caused us to commit all kinds of sin, has put us in a place of total condemnation, which means that it's going to take us all to an eternal destination of hell. And for eternity, it's a place of absolute place of torment, and it is what God does not want any of us to go through. Now, in order to do that, people say, yes, God is He's a loving God, He's forgiving God. Yes, but that forgiveness comes with a price, and it's a price that only He was able to pay on our behalf. And that is where the gospel comes in. In order to save us from this sin nature that is in us, it's really basically to save us from ourselves. God has paid our sin debt since He was born sinless. And as I said last time, we will touch on the topic how Jesus Christ was born sinless. and yet he came through a sinful human race. And these are all wonderful things. So he came, and the gospel is that, which we find in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 1 to 4, how that Jesus Christ died for our sins, he was buried, and then rose again for our justification. And justification simply means it's a legal, judicial acquittal by heaven. In other words, heaven sees us just as we have never sinned. The moment we place our heart-believing faith in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, when we talk about the gospel, many people always refer to John 3:16, how that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that those who believe in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And now when we think about that, really that is not the gospel, okay? Because the question always comes up. Yes, Jesus Christ indeed so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that those who believe in him shall not perish. When we say believe in him for what? And that is the question that we always need to answer, okay? Because before Christ went to the cross, the sin debt hadn't yet been paid. So, because he had come predominantly for the nation of Israel. So, believe in him for what did they have to believe in him for? That he was the Messiah. That was their gospel, that he was the promised one whom the prophets spoke about, who was coming to save Israel, and that he was the Son of God. That is why when Jesus Christ put the questions to the disciples, first he asked them, he says, who do men say that I am? And we find this in the book of Matthew, I think. And they say, well, some say you're Jeremiah, some say you're Isaiah, some say you're some prophet, some say this, some say that. When Jesus Christ puts them on the spot, he says, but who do you say that I am? And Peter, who is always very bold, he says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. You see? And that was their statement of faith. Peter didn't say that who has come to die for my sins on the cross, was buried, and was going to rise again for my justification. No. The reason they didn't know that, because the Bible clearly shows us that that was a mystery hidden in God even before the foundations of the world began. And we can find this, make a note of it, in the book of Romans, the last chapter 16 and verse 25. So today, after the cross, what are we called to believe in? Today, the message that has come to us post-cross, which is now in this age of grace, previous message of salvation, believing in him, that he was the Christ, was under the law. Today we are no longer under the law, but we are under grace. And under grace, the message is that Jesus Christ died for our sins. He was buried, and then he rose again for our justification, or in other words, our legal acquittal. So that's the gospel. And it is no works involved. One doesn't have to do anything. All that God asks is simply believe by faith with our hearts. So God bless you this morning. And because the moment we believe that, we literally step into heaven irrevocably. And that salvation that comes through the death, burial, and resurrection is an irrevocable salvation. Because the Bible states the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. That was a bit of an incident. So, hold on, boy. Okay, so God bless you this morning, and have a wonderful and a beautiful day.